So this month, our focus is on being held in parenting. And as I've been reflecting on that and thinking through that, there's a lot of examples that come to my mind about how I hold my kids as a parent. Obviously, when they're babies and you're nursing them and rocking them to sleep, holding your toddler's hands as they're learning to walk and crossing the street and parking lots, lots of hand holding. Now with my boys who are 3.5 and 5, there's a lot of holding them apart from each other as they're wrestling and working out conflicts. A lot of the holding just evolves with the kids. Well, a couple weeks ago, my 3.5-year-old had a really deep sliver in one of his hands. And my husband and I physically held him down to get the sliver out. And it was awful. There was just so much fighting and resisting and pushing back and screaming. We're like, this has to be traumatizing him, but it needs to come out. Like, we're doing our best. Finally got it out. Well, just earlier this week, a couple days ago, I found 2 more slivers. I don't know what this boy is doing. But one of them was even like beneath the cuticle, so I knew that was not going to be fun to get out. Well, thanks to one of you guys, a wise mom in this room recommended, why don't we try it while he's sleeping? You guys, it was brilliant. I held his hand while he slept, and my husband very carefully, gingerly got both of the slivers out without any trauma. Like, there was some flinching, but he stayed asleep and was resting peacefully that whole time. So tuck that away in your back pockets. If you have a sliver, just do it while they're asleep. They're resting. It was great. So there's a lot of examples of us as moms when we hold our kids. But the question for me was, what about how I'm held as a parent? How does God hold me? Well, there's a really beautiful passage in Hosea that depicts God as a father. I'm going to read that for us now. This is from Hosea 11, 1 through 4. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and I called my son out of Egypt. But the more I called to him, the farther he moved from me, offering sacrifices to the images of Baal and burning incense to idols. I myself taught Israel how to walk, leading him along by the hand. But he doesn't know or even care that it was I who took care of him. I led Israel along with my ropes of kindness and love. I lifted the yoke from his neck, and I myself stooped to feed him. Now, that passage is specifically about Israel and how God's interacting with Israel, but I think it speaks to his heart as our Father, too. So I'm going to read it again, replacing it with a few words and phrases that will relate it a little more to us. When you were a child, I loved you, and I called you out of sin and darkness. But the more I called to you, the farther you moved from me, choosing the things of this world instead of me. I myself taught you how to walk, leading you along by the hand. But you didn't know or even care that it was I who took care of you. I led you along with my ropes of kindness and love. I lifted the yoke from your neck, and I myself stooped to feed you. I really love those depictions, those images of God as our Father, leading us and loving us in his kindness and love, bending down to feed us, holding our hands as we're learning how to walk. It's really a powerful picture of God's compassionate heart. Those images are so clear. Just picture that for a moment. God bending down, helping you walk, feeding you. There's such a posture of tenderness and grace and compassion within those images. That's our God. But what about my posture? Am I running from him? Am I wrestling with him, resisting the help? Am I choosing other idols ahead of him? Am I fighting against him, just like my 3-year-old was really fighting when I was trying to get that sliver out for his good? What if my posture was more of rest, resting in his presence, in his character of goodness and kindness and love, surrendering to him, What if I let him hold my hand and really take care of me, leading me through this journey as I parent too? His heart is for me, and I know that I can be held by him.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for sharing your heart. It's so beautiful. Well, just as you all prayed Kaylee through her labor and delivery, she's over here now. Hi, Kaylee. Beautiful baby Marlo. We would just appreciate you praying for Christina. She's anticipating her baby month now, so be thinking and praying for her this month. But thank you for that sliver tip. I've never heard that. Amazing. I'm going to remember that. All right, well, we know that you guys are all highly anticipating our fan favorite speaker this morning, Ben Burns, so I'm so happy to introduce you to him. As marriage and family educator, Ben helps couples understand and live out the biblical picture of family in their homes, churches, and neighborhoods. He is a national conference speaker on marriage with family life, an adjunct professor on marriage and the family at Western Seminary, and is currently working on a YouTube channel on parenting called Family Practice. Ben and his wife, Janet, have 3 college-age children and live in Wilsonville, Oregon. Please help us welcome Ben Burns.
Thank you very much, ladies. By the way, I need to update the profile a little bit. So we only have one college kid left, and that's our daughter Sydney on the right here, redhead. She's a senior at UC Davis, and she plays basketball for them. So that's really cool. And then our son Jack behind her is graduating, now lives in Brooklyn, New York, and works in men's fashion selling suits. Just got back from Italy about a month and a half ago, and then from Amsterdam. I'm like, who is this kid? And then our daughter on the very far left is Lauren. She now lives in Washington, D.C. She works at a think tank. She's on the tank side, not on the think side, so she helps support. And then my wife Janet and I. We've been married for 30 years. So that's our family. I came from a men's thing this morning, and it's interesting because the men were talking about, men do hard things. And I'm thinking, if men do hard things, moms do impossible things. So it's a real privilege for me to be here. I've asked all my kids to pray for me because this is the most intimidating group of people to speak to, especially as a man. So I'm just privileged to be here. It's an honor to be in your presence. What you do and the role God has given you is so, so significant. Not only just for our family and your neighborhood and your church, but for our culture, for our country. So it really is a great privilege for me to be here. Now, I know that the theme has been a little bit about how God's going to hold us through storms. And the idea that I was kind of encouraged to think about was just kind of the idea how water shows up in the scriptures and how we react to water and how God uses water. And what I want to do this morning is I want to look at 3 different passages where water's involved and what the Bible says about this particular passage and how that applies to your situation. So you should have a set of notes in front of you, I hope. And we are talking about, first of all, the floodwaters. Floodwaters. And I want us to look at Genesis chapter 7 and follow along as I read this. But this is the account where God judges the world by water. He says, "Then the flood came upon the earth for 40 days, and the water increased and lifted up the ark." If you remember, Noah built this ark and brought on his family and a bunch of animals because God says, I'm going to judge the earth. So that the water rose above the earth. The water prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth. And the ark floated on the surface of the water. The water prevailed more and more upon the earth, so that all the mountains everywhere under the heavens were covered. The water prevailed 15 cubits higher, and the mountains were covered. All flesh that moved on the earth perished, birds and cattle and beasts and every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth, all mankind. Of all that was on the dry land, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, died. Thus he blotted out every living thing that was upon the face of the land, from man to animals, to creeping things and to birds of the sky, and they were blotted out from the earth. And only Noah was left, together with those that were with him in the ark. The water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Sounds like Oregon, doesn't it? A little bit? Yeah. But what's interesting about this passage is that it's talking about how the water just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And it's getting higher and higher. And the word prevailed is used 4 or 5 times in here, that it was just nonstop. It was persistent. And so the first thing that I want us to think about is this idea that water, in this instance, was used to judge people. And I think what's interesting is when we look at kind of how water has happened in some of the floods around here recently, this is the recent flood from Hurricane Helene. This is in Asheville, North Carolina. Look at how the water is almost up to the roof. It's overwhelming. This was a passage, or a flood that took place in China. Look how the water is just devastating these buildings. And lastly, this was from Katrina. This is a man on top of his van, because the waters are so big and so powerful. And what I want to suggest this morning, ladies, is that you are under the waters of judgment. And this judgment comes from 3 places. It comes from the world, it comes from the flesh, and it comes from the devil. And you are being overwhelmed as this water is mounting. You live in a culture, you live in your own skin, you live in a world that is constantly judging you. And so as you looked at your outline, I want to talk about these 3 different things. Their first one is the world. So how is it that the world judges you? What does the world say about that? What does the world say about this question? I mean, what is a woman? We can't even define what it means today. But when you sit with this, I want to ask you to take a moment, and I want you to write down, take some time and write down, what does the culture say that you're supposed to be as a mom and as a woman? What are some things? Write that down. What are the messages that you hear that are in your face about what it means to be a woman? You're going to use this a little later for some of your discussions, so just take a moment and think for a second. What words come to your mind? What does the culture say about you? I'm going to lean on a couple tables to get a couple answers. I'm curious, what were some words that came from this table? What were just some things that you wrote down? Perfect. Perfect? Oh, gee, that's all. Okay. What else? Anyone else on the table? What'd you come up with? Caretaker. Caretaker? Pardon me? Home for your babies. You're there at home. What about your table over here? I'm going to come over here. What are a couple of words that come to your table, come to your mind? What does the culture say about you as a mom, as a woman? You have to do everything. And how do you have to do it? Just mediocre? Perfectly. Yeah. Any other ideas from your table about that? Compliant. Wow. With culture, with everybody, that you have to fit in and be compliant to everybody else's desires and needs. Okay. Anything else from your table? You know, it's interesting. When I was growing up, advertising was really, like it is today, super big. But since I grew up kind of more in the 80s in college, one of the things that was really interesting, there was an advertising campaign for a women's fragrance. And I kind of forget the name of it. It probably doesn't exist anymore. But the fragrance was really interesting. The line that they came up with for the commercial, speaking to women, is that you need to bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let him forget he's a man. Wow. Talk about a little pressure there, huh? But the world, in general, our culture, kind of devalues motherhood. It kind of sees it as a second-class spot almost. It elevates that CEO, the one who's making a ton of money, the one who's independent and strong, the one who can do her own thing. It also puts pressure on you to run the home perfectly. And so what's interesting is that we have this flood that you are living in. The culture is trying to define you and judge you about what it means to be a woman and a mom. You see, a mom is judged by her performance. And our culture has a really high standard for you that you need to live up to, because if you don't live up to it, you are under judgment. You don't feel good about yourself. And when you don't feel good about yourself, it's hard to take care of yourself, and it's hard to take care of your kids. Part of the flood and the rising waters you're under is what the culture is saying about you. There's a second part of this flood, and that's the flesh. By the way, this is what I think you're all supposed to be, right? Is this kind of it? Basically, Gal Gadot, killer outfit, can do everything, superpowers. Wouldn't it be great to have that lasso? You could just get your kids anywhere, pull them off the slide, pull them off the swing, get them back into their room to do their chores. But this is the idea that you are supposed to be Wonder Woman, Wonder Mom. And that's part of the floodwaters that is judging you as a mom. There's a second part of these floodwaters, and that's the flesh. This is what's so interesting. We were talking with a couple yesterday. We do some parent coaching. And as I was talking with this one mom just about what's going on, they have 4 kids. Their oldest are twins in 2nd grade. Then they have 1st grade in kindergarten. And just the floodwaters that she's living under by her own standards. She has this desire to be a certain kind of mom. She wants to have it all together. She wants to be able to do all the meals perfectly and take the kids perfectly and manage their home perfectly and read to the kids at night and walk with the Lord and help their kids understand the Lord. And she was saying how it was interesting that when they got together with her husband's family, they also have a 2nd grader. And so for some reason they were having some time to read as some families, and she heard her daughter's cousin reading a book thinking, my daughter doesn't read as well. What's wrong with me? What did I not do right? Did I not start the Bob books early enough? Did I not read early enough? And what was interesting is all the pressure that she put on herself, because her own flesh was saying, I've got to be perfect. I've got to have it all together. And what corresponds with that for her is the shame. That she has all this shame, she's not doing enough. She's not doing it well enough. And what's interesting is our own flesh creates these standards for us that are absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. And they flood us day after day with our own expectations about that. You know, it's interesting because some moms really are extraordinarily gifted, and you can do a lot of things. I know there's a lot of guys that when I compare myself, I fall short a lot because there's some guys that do incredible things. But when we start comparing ourselves to other people, we open this door for all kinds of self-condemnation. And our souls are ripe for that. Because we're trying to find our meaning and our value in how well we do our jobs as parents instead of who God has made us to be. And the more that our flesh gets involved where we're comparing, the more that we get in trouble. You see, what's interesting is our kids don't need a perfect parent. Your kids don't need a perfect mom because you can't be one. What your kids need is their mom. All that you have, all that you are, they need their mom. And if we're spending more of our time daydreaming about who we want to be someday or comparing ourselves to somebody else, we take ourselves out of the moment. We put ourselves down. And I don't know about you, but when I put myself down, I don't have much to give to other people because I feel really bad about myself. And so the flesh is the second part of the waves of judgment that's happening to us. And so it's good for us to remember that this is something that's very real, that's pressing down on ourselves, that we've got to deal with. We've got to take inventory. We've got to make sure that we're not letting these waves overwhelm us. Well, there's a third part of this waves, or the flood, and that is the devil. That is the devil. And you know what's interesting is that the Bible tells us that he is out to steal and kill and destroy. That's his job. His job is try to help us think that we're independent, we don't need God's help, that we can do everything on our own. And part of the thing he's trying to work on is he's trying to push to us to find all of your value and significance in how well you do your job. That's where you're going to get value. That's where you're going to get meaning. That's where you'll find significance. And when he keeps telling us that, and we keep believing that, and we see ourselves not doing the job we want to do, we feel condemned. We feel judged. And what's interesting is how the picture that the Bible paints is that Satan uses these other things to kind of carry it out. He uses the world. He says, look at that. That's who you should be. He uses our flesh. And what he does is he puts this all together to keep coming after us, to judge us, to condemn us, and to put us down. And in my opinion, it's interesting the kind of stuff that he uses. You know, one of the things that he can use is just good things that have good intentions. There's a lot of great blogs out there, aren't there? Yes. But when we go and watch these things and start to compare ourselves and feel down, Satan's like, awesome. Go look at more of this stuff. Go put more guilt on yourself. Go put more unrealistic expectations on yourself. Now again, some of us can do this and we multitask well, but a lot of us just can't. And if we're saying that our standard is perfection, or what the culture says, or our own idea when we're too hard on ourselves, all this does is make it the flood waves harder and harder on us. So what's interesting is he wants to use all of these things to do that. But the bottom line is this is what his message is. You just don't measure up. You'll never measure up. And he hits on something we already feel on the inside. And when we follow this and listen to this, the waves just keep coming, don't they? Every day, don't they just keep coming? Maybe you had a fail this morning that you came here feeling like you're the worst mom ever. Or maybe it's going to happen this afternoon, and you're going to feel like the worst mom ever. Or it's going to happen later this week, and you're going to feel like the worst mom ever. Because the bottom line is Satan wants to accuse the brethren and the sisters of not being enough. You don't have what it takes. And this is the deluge that we're living under. And I think one of the tools that he uses, I'm going to be a bit of a fuddy-duddy here. I'm very old, so that's okay. I could be a fuddy-duddy. Is that he uses this thing right here. Because what this is this gives us access to everything the world says we should be, and everything our flesh is longing to be, and all the comparison they have is right here. I thought of this the other day. It's interesting. When I look at my phone, it's almost like I'm watching television anywhere I want. When I was a kid, you had to sit in front of the TV and watch it and hear all the advertisements and all that stuff. But now you can watch stuff anytime you want. And it's not just the world's message of advertising. It's all the other people out there that you compare yourself to. And the more that we live our lives on these things, the more Satan just smiles. Because he lets the floodwaters just keep coming and coming and coming. Well, the thing that we have to remember is that Romans 8:1 says that there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. There's something about our relationship with Christ that gets us out from all of this judgment. But it's important for us to realize we are hitting this every day. Every day we're feeling this. You are under judgment by these waters that we're surrounded by in the culture. Well, there's a second kind of water that I want us to think about, and that's the water, the quiet waters that come from Psalm 23. Let's look at this, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Doesn't that just sound amazing? Wouldn't it be nice to have some quiet time in your home? Would that be crazy? Can we just have 2 minutes of quiet, please? He leads us beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So if you're looking at your notes, the big idea here is that a mom is valued by God. See, instead of trying to find our value from the culture or from our performance, where do we find our value? As a person, as a parent, as a mom, we find it from who we are in Christ and what God tells us is true about us. And there's 3 things that come out of this particular passage. First is that he leads her. He leads moms. And it's so interesting. It's not just simply this idea of, hey, I'll give you some wisdom. I'll give you some practical thoughts. I'll help you get organized. He can do all that stuff. But where does he lead us? He leads us to himself. He says, I'm the answer. I want you to know me better. I want you to come beside these quiet waters. I want you to spend some time with me and be quiet and understand who I am and how much I love you, how much I care about you. The Bible tells us in Psalm 139 that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Do you know that? Do you know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made? You are made in the image and likeness of God. You have absolute dignity and deserve so much respect. That's who you are. So to come into his presence and thank him and be grateful for the fact that you are alive and breathing, that God himself intentionally brought you to life. And second of all, that he leads us to understand that we now belong to him. That if you're a Christian and have asked Christ to pay for your sins, apply his sins for you, and you are in the family of God, you are a child of God. He loves you. Let me ask you a silly question. How many of you love your children? Raise your hands. Okay. I thought that might be unanimous. How many people, though, really love your kids? I mean, okay. How many of you love your kids more than all the women at your table? Probably. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Comparing again, see? Told you, it's already there. Yeah. Guys, that is nothing compared with how much God loves you. God deeply loves you. He made you. He knows everything about you. He knows all the trials and the challenges in your life. He knows how you feel. He knows what you think. He knows what you're worried about. He knows all of that. And he loves every molecule of you. And he's saying, I want to lead you to myself. I want you to come to me. I want you to be with me by these quiet waters and reflect on who you are in me. Not who you are in the culture. Not who you wish you could be on your own desires and flesh. Not who Satan's accusing you of. Come, be with me. He leads her. The second thing that he does is that he restores her. That's the whole purpose. It's not like, okay, you're supposed to be with me. You got to spend 10 minutes with me. I don't know if you ever felt a quiet time like that. Like, okay, I'm supposed to spend time with God. I have 9 minutes because that's 9 minutes left on their show. So I've only got 9 minutes. All right, God, you better do something. I got 9 minutes. Now I got 8 minutes. He restores her. He wants her to grow and become the kind of woman that God's designed her to be. He wants to give us patience. He wants to give us love. He wants to give us kindness. He wants to help us grow and get better. He restores us so that we can move towards our kids. We can move towards our spouse. We can move towards living our life. He restores us. He also restores us by forgiving us. I'm willing to bet that every mom in this room, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, I bet every mom in this room has made a mistake with their children. Maybe even done something they shouldn't have done with their children, like maybe yelled at them or been impatient with them. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But you know what he does? He says, look, you're human. This is a hard morning. You did something that you didn't like. You regret that. But you know what? I forgive you. I completely forgive you because you're a human being. Christ died for us. So he restores us in knowing that, gosh, all of my fails, all the things I wish I didn't do, you are forgiven. Let's move on. Satan wants to keep you back in it. He says, no, I want to restore you. I want you to know you're forgiven of everything. And he wants to give us perspective. See, he restores us by giving us perspective of ourselves. See, if we keep looking at ourselves through the world's lenses and our flesh's lens and listening to Satan, we have a distorted perspective of who we are. And God says, I want to help restore you and understand who you are. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You belong to me. You're a child of mine. You have a significant role on this planet. You are a mother. Look at all the wonderful things that you're going to do. One of the things that I do in the morning that I would encourage you to think about, I'll tell you part of it, but for me it's just simply called the daily offering. But what I try to do is every morning I say, Lord, will you protect my ears from hearing lies of the world, lies of my flesh, and lies of the devil. And I want to strongly encourage you to get in the habit of doing that. Why? Because every day you're going to hear lies from the world, lies from your flesh, and lies from the devil. That's what you're going to hear. And the more that you pray and ask God to help you not hear those, the more you're going to feel him restoring you and leading you. So, this is the idea of leading. He wants to lead. He cares. Forgot to show my pictures. Sorry. Boy, how's that look for a little quiet water time, huh? I don't know if I could ever get a fire to go that nicely, but just look at that for a second. Look how calm that is. Look how peaceful that is. Now, are you going to get that every day? Probably not. Can you get moments of that? Absolutely. And this is where God invites us to come and spend a little time with him and just to be in his presence and experience this. Well, the last one is the idea is that he comforts her. That God wants to comfort moms. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, part of the Beatitudes, he said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." You know, when I look at my relation with my wife, when we got married, we couldn't get pregnant. So we were struggling with infertility. And man, for a woman who wants to be a mom, that's extremely difficult. There might be some of you in this room still that are in that spot. When we had finally gotten pregnant, we lost that baby. And then she had a molar pregnancy, which means she couldn't even try to get pregnant for a while. She had to have a DNC. It was a really, really tricky situation. And then finally, when this first baby came along, we were celebrating. But that first baby, when she got to freshman in high school, we found she had a pituitary tumor, which sits right below your brain, between your optic nerves and your carotid arteries. And they wanted to go in and take a really sharp object to remove it. You know, that's kind of a dangerous place to have a sharp object, by the optic nerves and the carotid arteries. And that was scary. And it got even scarier when she had to have 3 more surgeries. And through that whole time, as much as I was trying to encourage my wife and comfort my wife, man, I am limited. I have real limitations on how I can do that. And the way she sought the Lord, the way she continued to pour out her heart before the Lord, the way she just kept coming to him and understanding his love and mercy and even the mystery of his will, she would just be getting comforted little by little from him. Because he knows what you're feeling. He knows what you're frustrated about. He knows what you're anxious about. He knows how you feel about what happened this morning or what happened over the weekend. And all he wants to do is bring comfort to you. So when we have all these floodwaters, we need to get away from those. And where do we need to go? We need to go and be around the quiet waters to spend time with him and try to get his perspective more and more in our lives. You know, I know this is really difficult to suggest because where in the world are you going to find time? I get it. I just think, I feel like I'm putting this pressure on you, like, you better spend time with Jesus, as if you don't know that. But what I'm hoping you'll hear is just to keep getting after it. Keep trusting the Lord to find those pockets, however you get them. Maybe that's the strategic time where they watch something, you know, and you can try to get a couple minutes. What I want to encourage you to do is keep this really, really simple. Don't say, okay, I've got 9 minutes and I've got to cover 3 chapters in this women's Bible study that I'm behind on. Guys, you're going to kill yourself and you're going to put more pressure on yourself. Would you just find 3 or 4 verses in the Bible and just read those and just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for what I just read. Keep it really, really simple. And as you're able to do that and just have a simple moment where you can read something, think for a moment, talk to God, little by little, I think you're going to feel some of these quiet waters. But I know it is extremely difficult for you to find that time. It might be that as your kids get a little older, 4 or 5, you might be able to institute what we tried to do, which was kind of some quiet time, where we say, hey, this is your time to be in your room for 30 minutes. You can read, look at things, you can color, you can do puzzles, but this is your time to be in your room. Mom needs some time by herself. And as we kind of eventually got that established, it was great because the kids were quiet in their rooms doing their things. Believe me, it took some time to establish that. It did. But it might be that you can structure some time where your kids are doing some things where you get to pull out and kind of do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Okay? Well, I want us to kind of have a few minutes of reflection before you go into your group discussion time. And the questions are there right on your sheet if you're looking at your notes, personal reflection. Where are you feeling most judgment right now? Maybe that's what you started on your list. If you didn't really have a chance to do that list, let me encourage you to take a few moments to do this. Because this is going to be something I want you all to share with each other. Because you know what you're going to find as you share this? You're not the only one. You're not the only one under this deluge of judgment. And the more honest you can be about what you're feeling, and even from yourself, your own perfectionism, you're going to bless so many women at your table because they'll go, wow, I thought I was the only one who thought that way. And you're going to find just how real the women at your table are. So that's the first idea, to reflect for a few minutes. Secondly, is when you feel under judgment, what or who has the Lord used to minister to you in the past? How does God help you get refocused? How does he help you get that perspective? Who has he used? What has he used? Because this becomes the thing for you to say, man, I need to call that person more often. I need to try to grab a play date with them more often. I need to read this part of the scripture. Whatever it is, what has the Lord used? So I'm going to give you just about 2 or 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll release it to your discussion time. So take a few minutes to just by yourself reflect on these things, okay? And then release you to your discussion.
All right. Hopefully you had a few minutes to get some notes jotted down. We wanted to let you know that if you have questions coming to mind, one of you has already seen this on the table because I already got a text. But we're going to have a Q&A section at the end with Ben. So if you have any questions that come to mind that you want to text in, it goes to an anonymous number. I have an extra number on my phone when I say that. I don't know who's texting, but go ahead. The number's there, and then we'll show it later. So keep that in mind. Before we go to our break, though, we're going to have a little raffle. So if you came in those doors by 9:30 and you got your raffle ticket, pull those out right now. We have 5 things we're giving away this morning, 3 coffee cards to Country Coffee, and 2 books, one for women and one for children. Maybe an early Christmas present. We'll see. Okay, grab your tickets. I'm going to start drawing here. First one, going to read the last 3 digits. 4 digits. Let's try that. 4003. Yeah, come on up. Good job. All right. Yeah. Number 2, we have 4005. Anybody? Yeah, good job. Come on up. Okay. Next is 3959. 3959. Yeah, Tabitha. Good job. All right. Next, we have 4002. Yeah, Chelsea. Okay. Last one. We have a Randy Alcorn graphic novel. Wrap this up for your kids for Christmas, or maybe the cousin or something. We have 3956. 3956. I hear clapping. Yay! Good job. Congratulations. All right. Well, we're actually going to transition to our break now. So this is the time to go ahead and stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, check out the sharing table, and then we'll bring you back in a few so we can hear more from Ben. Thanks, ladies.
All right, ladies, grab those snacks and your drink. Head on back to your tables. Take note of that Q&A number. Keep those questions coming in. It's going to be really great to hear from Ben. We'll give you guys about 20 more seconds, and then Ben's going to pop back up here for his second part. And then after that, we'll have some table discussion time.
All right, hope you're able to refresh from the break, get another cup of coffee. I got to tell you, it is so fun to just watch moms with their kids right now. And, you know, when I think of where we're at with our kids, it goes so fast. I'm just telling you, they're going to be gone someday. I'm getting verklempt, I'm sorry, but, you know, they'll be gone. Someday they'll be gone, so enjoy this moment. Oh, okay, I'll refresh myself, okay. Hey, as we move into this next section, I just want to say that if you are a nursing mom, or if you're working on one right now, you might be nursing and have a couple more, but if you're only a nursing mom right now, or you have an infant, the stuff we're going to talk about, please don't listen too closely to, okay? Because your job is to bond with your child, to be with them, to pay attention to them, to just never get bored of looking into their eyes and being amazed that the image of God is in your lap, okay? So this next part, just let them drool on you or tear up paper or whatever they're doing at your table. You're going to have time to keep growing. It's going to be okay. So I want us to look at a third water. If you look on, it should be on the second page. And this is water into wine. Water into wine. This is from John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. And it says that on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman," which I think is really like, not being disparaging. I think he was just saying, "Mom, you know, hey, Mom, yeah. What does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come." Jesus had some boundaries. I like that. His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now, there were 6 stone water pots set there for the Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." So they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now and take it to the head waiter." So they took it to him. When the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Every man serves the good wine first, and when the people have drunk freely, then he serves the poorer wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This beginning of his signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory. What's so interesting about this particular passage is that Jesus takes something as common as water and he turns it into something absolutely flavorful and powerful. It's like the best of the best wine. Because like the groom's father was saying, hey, most people kind of get people drunk on the good stuff and then bring out the Kool-Aid, right? This stuff is amazing. And so what Jesus did is he took ordinary water and he turned it into something fantastic. And what that means for us, and especially for you as moms, is no matter where you are in your life and in your skills as a mom, as you keep walking with the Lord and as you keep learning, because you are a learning organism, you are. Look how much you've learned so far. You're only going to keep learning. It's going to be something that's just a part of your life. You know, what do we call it when you try something and you fail, and you try something and you fail, and you try something and you fail? You know what that's called? It's called learning. And you are learning. You are learning organisms. And what I'm trying to suggest, that as you keep learning and you keep growing your skills, you're going to be getting better and better at how you relate to your children, how you manage your things, how you manage the home. It's going to take you time. But by God's help, with God's grace, with your willingness to keep learning and keep growing, you're just going to you're going to be a better and better and better mom. Does that make sense? I hope that doesn't put pressure on you. I'm just trying to give you hope that God wants to and will keep growing you as a woman, keep growing you as a mom. And so there's 3 things I want us to try to look at in this time that we have here. And I'm hoping it'll be a little more practical as well. So this is the idea, that as you are pouring yourself out into a glass called your children, it's just going to be a beautiful thing for them over time. You're going to have some real successes. You're going to have some failures, but over time. That's why I'm saying nursing moms, infants, you got time. You got plenty of time, okay? So there's 3 things I want us to think about. I'm on page 2 of our notes, and it's the idea that there's 3 things that we want to consider. First of all, it's this idea that a mom is influential by her leadership. A mom is influential by her leadership. And I want to suggest, and we're going to walk through this a little quickly if there's some questions about it. These are some big ideas. I'll try to kind of unpack it a little bit. But the first thing is that she leads through giving choices. A book that really helped my wife Janet and I was called Parenting with Love and Logic. And they said the more control we give away, the more control we gain. Parents who attempt to take all the control from their children end up losing the control they sought to begin with. These parents invite their children to fight to get control back. Dealing with choices and being held responsible for their own decisions prepares youngsters for the lifetime of decision-making that awaits them in adulthood. And so one of the things that we can do as parents is to learn how to lead our children by giving them choices. And there's times you have to give a direct command, get out of the street. You know, I said we need to go, please pick up your things. There's times where you really give these direct commands to your kids, and they need to listen to you. But there's a lot of times where if everything is a direct command, just think how you feel if your husband came home and gave you a bunch of direct commands. How would you feel? Probably not too good. Because what's operating inside of you is the same thing operating inside of me. It's a sin principle. And when I hear the law, I want to rebel. And I can do that passively. I can do it passive-aggressively. I can do it aggressively. But our children are fallen images of God. And if we're always pushing and demanding certain things, they're going to find ways to not do it, aren't they? Have you had a kid that doesn't do what you ask them to do? Do they kind of dawdle a little bit? Do they pretend that they don't hear you? Do they use all these passive-aggressive things? And they're only 2 years old. What's the deal? They're sinners. That's the deal. They're sinful. And so hopefully by giving some choices, it allows them to grow by making a choice, but also helps them feel at times that it's not a direct command that pushes against their flesh. And so I want us to think about 4 different kinds of choices that we can give. And this is not exactly in your notes, but you can make a spot on it. The principle here, if you're following me, she leads through choices. The principle is that kids respond better when they have a little control, and that's what that talked about. The waitress idea, and I know that sounds demeaning, but the thing is, when we go to a restaurant in America, what do you get? When they ask you, like you're having breakfast and they ask you, do you want toast? How many options of toast do you have? How many options of bread is there, right? There's white bread, there's wheat bread, there's sourdough bread, there's muffins, there's bagels, there's buttered toast, there's all kinds of choices, aren't there? And so we're raising our kids in this country where there's lots of choices, and so helping them make choices and lead them through that way can be really helpful. And so the idea is you're simply trying to offer them, especially for younger kids, 2, 3, 4, 5. This can get into grade school areas as well. It can still work with high school because kids need to make choices. Well, there's how does this flow? What you're trying to do is just give them a simple option. You're trying to present a simple choice. Instead of saying, hey, I want you to get something to, set the table. So what I want you to do is I want you to think through, and I'm going to ask you to say these things with me, is I want you to put this into a choice and start with the left and then go to the right. So you got a Shopkins plate or an Anna and Elsa plate. So what kind of choice could you give your kid when it comes time to eat dinner, eat lunch? Which plates? What could you say? Do you want the Shopkins plate or the Anna Elsa plate? Right? It's just simple. So that way you're involving them in the process, you're helping them decide. What about this one? Would you like the blue sippy cup or the green sippy cup? So you're still leading, you're still involved, but you're trying to help them feel like I have a say in what's going on. What about this one? Which book would you like to read? Cat in the Hat or Corduroy? I want you to say these things. I want you to feel like this is coming out of your mouth. because this can be something that can really help you lead calmly with your kids. Instead of, go find a book. Well, then it's going to take forever, right? Or they bring 20 books. Well, now what am I going to do? See, now you have a conflict because they had way too many options. And so one of the ways you can lead is by giving them simple choices. Either one of these you're fine with, right? These are fine. What about this one? Would you like buttered toast or would you like a bagel? Okay? This is not hard. What about this one? This is interesting. Yeah, do you want to brush your teeth first before we go to bed, or would you like to read a story before we go to bed? We're going to look at an exercise that will help that. What about this one? Do you want the blue dress or the red dress, or do you want the blue dress? What about this one? Do you want to wear the blue shorts or the red shorts? Does anybody get lost on this? Is anyone lost here? Which story of the Bible do you want to read? The creation account or the story of Amos? Which one do you want to read? Which game do you want to play? Would you like to play Uno? Or would you like to play Stop It? And of course, everyone's great choice. Would you like Captain Crunch or Fruit Loops? Of course, you're never going to offer them that choice. Sweet cereal's evil, okay? But do you see the idea here? Is you're just trying to get through dinner, get through the day, get through what's next by involving them and giving them a choice. And what happens is oftentimes can bring more peace because they have a little say in the matter. You kind of feel like you're leading in a direction little by little, and there's more peace between you because you're trying to lead them with some simple choices, okay? There's a second kind of choice. This is a little bit more complicated, possibly. It's the cake before steak. How many of you feed your kids dessert before dinner? Yeah, nobody. Good. We shouldn't. This is the exact same principle. That responsibility comes before privilege. Responsibility comes before privilege. So what would this choice be? Would you, yes, we can read Go Dog Go after you make your bed. See, you're saying yes to what they're asking for, but you're attaching something to it. So they have to make a choice. They'll say, I really want to read the book, so okay, I guess I have to do that. You're allowing them to lead in, hey, I want to do this, but you're asking for them to cooperate. They don't cooperate, they don't get to read. And that's what the principle is. If you look in the middle of the page, she leads through, no, I'm not on there yet. Yeah. She leads through, this is a principle. If they cooperate, you win. If they don't cooperate, you can lose, all right? It's another choice. Do you want to play, before you can play the Game Boy, you need to pick up your toys. So they've got to decide, do I want to play hard enough to get the toys? Now, I'm making this simple. There's all kinds of complications with all these. I get that. I don't want either. I get all that. We can't get into that yet. I'm just trying to give the principle of choices. Yes, we can watch something on TV once you help with the dishwasher. Yes, I'd love to see you get some time on the trampoline after you do some of your homework. I'd love for you to ride your bike in the driveway once you help clearing the table from lunch. Yes, you can play with your Legos as soon as you pick up your dirty socks. I'd love for you to be Tony Hawk and skate in the empty swimming pool in our neighbor's house once you put your laundry away. Yes, we can decorate cookies all afternoon once you pick up your towel and put it where it belongs. I'd love for you to murder someone with Nerf pellets. I probably would say it that way. After you feed Fido. Play-Doh is awesome. I'd love for you to get some time playing Play-Doh once you get your shoes put away. Does that make sense? You're leading through choices. You're just giving them some simple choices. The third choice, and this is what I like to call the parent helper. Now you have to be very, very discerning about this. Because if you don't want to help them, do not offer your help. You know, don't say, would you like mommy's help? Yeah. Oh, dang it. You know, But sometimes your kid might be, I don't want your help. I don't want your help. Do it myself, right? Do it myself. But sometimes if it's an overwhelming task, it's like, honey, would you like to do this? Or would you like mommy to help you? Okay? Where would you like to start? Would you like to start with your toys or your puzzles? And you can just lead them through the chore by a helper. But again, if you don't want to help, don't offer this. Okay? The fourth kind of type of choice is this idea of the stall. And man, this is magical. It's really kind of a magical. You kind of get used to this. But what you're trying to do is you're still asking them to do something, but giving them a choice to wait for a few minutes. Try this once. It'll be interesting to see what your kids' reactions like. Hey, would you like to start our bedtime routine now or 5 minutes from now? What do you think the kid's going to say? Absolutely. Now, if you're fine with that, great. But what it does a couple things. It sets them up that this is coming. And second of all, like, what? 5 minutes? Mom, I can have, oh, you're the best mom ever. And you're just thinking, dude, I just drew out a bag 5 minutes. What's the deal here, you know? But it's just simply adding a little bit of time. Yes, you can finish your Legos. In 5 minutes, we need to pick up the Legos. Okay, do you want to stop that now or in 5 minutes? Do you want to stop your show now or in 5 minutes? Now, shows and things on videos are hard because they usually have an ending point. You know, you would feel bad if someone interrupted you and you couldn't finish a show, right? So that's not really the choice we want to make. But it's offering them, yeah, would you like to put up your coloring now or put up your coloring in 5 minutes? They're going to always take the 5 minutes. But you're giving them a little say in what's going on, okay? Same thing. You want to finish your game now or in 5 minutes? So those are just some ways to think about some choices, okay? Now, that's a lot, but it's something to try. Second thing is that she leads through consequences. And this is where I go back to the principle is cooperating. You win. If you don't cooperate, you lose. And a principle for consequences that I want to encourage you to think about is a principle that we were taught as we were raising our kids. What you abuse, you lose. What you abuse, you lose. So if you're trying to think what's a consequence, think of what is being abused, what do they need to lose? And this is what's hard for kids because it's like, well, you didn't pick up your socks, so I'm taking your bike away from you for a month. And they're like, well, wait a minute, how does that work? And all they do is get mad at you because it doesn't make sense. Versus, hey, you didn't get your socks picked up in time, we can't go to the library. Now they're like, oh, what I did affected me. Now I can't go to the library because I didn't pick up the socks the way my mom asked me to. So the thing is, we want to remember what we abuse, we lose. And sometimes, you know what's being abused? Is you. And they need to lose time from mom a little bit. And that's where you construct a quiet time or a timeout or a something where if they're not going to treat you properly and you need to expect respect from them. You need to expect cooperation from them. And if you don't get that and they're abusing you, then they need to lose you somehow in the form of a timeout. And what will happen when timeouts are done properly, the kid starts to realize, I don't want to be in my room by myself. I'm ready to come out and behave and play along. So they might need to lose you, if that makes sense. There's two types of consequences. And again, this is a lot of info. I get this, but it's just some overview. There are the natural consequences that kids need to learn about their lives. The idea, if you leave your shoes outside and it rains, guess what happens? Your shoes get wet. It's like, hey, guys, make sure you pick up your shoes. It's getting dark. They don't pick up their shoes. Dang it. Wearing wet shoes is a bummer. And hopefully they're going to learn that because they didn't pick up their shoes, the next time they want to pick up their shoes. If you forget your raincoat and it's raining, you get wet. Now, I understand there's health considerations, there's weather, all kinds of things. But the more we keep rescuing our kids from experiencing their consequences, the more we're creating kids who depend on us, who aren't thinking for themselves, who aren't learning, because we keep rescuing them from certain consequences. If you get your school lunch, you get hungry. But as my wife and I were trying to figure this out, we're both deep codependents. Man, we just want to take care of everybody. We want to fix everything. We want everybody to like us. And as we were learning this stuff, we had made the lunches for the kids, and the lunches are sitting on the counter, and we're all ready to go. And one of the things we were taught is to say, hey, all right, we're going to go. I know I have everything I need. Like, I'm taking care of myself. I have everything I need. And they're like, I have everything I need. Their lunches are right on the counter. And my wife and I would fight each other, like, don't say it, no, don't you say it, don't you say it, don't, because we both want to rescue our kids. Why? Because we love our kids. We don't want them to go, an afternoon without a half of a sandwich that they're not going to finish anyways. We don't want it, We're irresponsible kids. They'll die if they don't eat that half sandwich. No. They'll be hungry, and they'll come home, and they'll learn. And we had to really push ourselves to, don't say anything. And there are times they went to school without a lunch, and there are times they got hungry. And what they learned is when I say, hey, I've got everything, they're looking around to see if they have everything. So these are natural consequences. The other kind are the idea of relational consequences. And this is the relationship between you and your child. And I've kind of mentioned that. If you clean your room, we can go to the zoo. You see, you're not just a chauffeur that does anything they want. You're not. You have a life. You're needing to manage the home. You've got other children. You're trying to be organized. Okay? You have time limits. You are a human being. Now, if they cooperate with you, then things go well. If they don't cooperate with you, then they don't get what they want. Because it's, again, privilege comes after responsibility. So you would say something like that. If you throw your toys, you lose your toys for a while. You know, the rule in our house is we don't throw things, we don't throw our toys. I'm sorry, let me take your toys for a while. Now, how long that is, you have to figure that out, but there's a consequence because you're in charge of the home. The other one is, I'll be glad to talk to you when you can talk to me in a nice, calm voice like I'm talking to you. Now, the way that works best is if you are talking in a nice, calm voice. Sometimes it's like, I will talk to you and you can talk to me in a nice, calm voice. So this is where, like, Lord, help me settle down, help me calm down. And it's trying to model for them that you just don't treat me this way. We have to teach our children how to treat us, how to be in relationship with us. And if they treat us improperly, they shouldn't expect to get the things they want. That just doesn't make sense. So that's where we have to keep growing. We're learning organisms. We have to keep growing in our boundaries and the way we're managing ourselves with our children so our kids learn how to be in relationship with us. All right? The last one here is that she leads through compassion. And you know this intuitively. You get this. This is natural. It might be that you're overly compassionate and it's harder for you to get to consequences. It's harder for you to get to structure because you know it might hurt your child. They might be a little upset in the moment, and that makes it hard. And part of the reason it makes it hard is you're so gifted in compassion. But part of what our kids need is not just compassion, they need structure. Jesus was grace and truth. He wasn't 100% grace. He wasn't 100% truth. He was both of them. And psychologist Henry Cloud says that when it's time to give truth to someone, make sure that grace shows up first. And the principle here is that statements of understanding precede statements of direction. Okay, statements of understanding precede a statement of direction of how you're trying to lead them and direct them of what's next. So here's some examples. I know you're having a lot of fun playing this game. Pause. Say that. See, watch what they're doing. Are they having fun? Yeah, they're having fun. So if they're having fun and you just come in and say, hey, put that thing down, how's it going to go? Badly. Because if you're playing something and your husband comes home and says, hey, put that thing down, how do you feel? You like, say, what? So your child is a human being. And so you want to identify first and have compassion. You're about ready to ask them to stop something. How does that feel? They really like this. So take a moment to start with compassion or understanding. You say, hey, I know you're having a lot of fun with that game. It's one of your favorite games. Is it fun? And they're like, yeah. Then pause. Give a pause. Let that sink in. Let them feel mom sees me. Mom likes me playing this game. It's okay to play this game. Put in this pause. You say, but honey, I need you to put that down so we can start on dinner. And that pause becomes really powerful because if we don't understand them and just come right in with this, you got to do this, it hurts. It's a conflict. So try to identify where they are. And again, this is for as your kids are a little older. And the thing is, it can be as simple as just saying, you're really sad. You know, I watch people on the airplanes, and you maybe have been on an airplane, and it's like crazy because a child is not, cooperating, they're crying, or whatever. And the poor mom, usually, not the dad, poor mom is trying to calm them down, and they're doing, come down. Instead of going, oh, honey, you're just really sad. This is really bumpy. This is really hard. And the thing is, everything inside of you is just going crazy and anxious. And we bring that to our kids instead of just saying, you know what? They're having ear problems. They can't stop it. So how do I bring out the compassion first? I know you really look forward to going to the library. And we can leave as soon as your toys are all picked up. I know you want us to read one more book before bed. Because you're like, one more. Oh, honey, I know. Wouldn't that be fun to read one more book? But it's time to go to bed. We've got to move into our routine. Okay? So one of the things I want to do, I think I might have, let me just show this to you. We may not get to it. If you have this handout called Parenting Action Plan, I want you to turn it on page 2. And where this really can work a lot is on this section called Weekly Rhythms. In other words, what kind of weekly routines would you like to work towards? And there's 4 rhythms that I think you probably have throughout the day. One is the morning routine. Especially as you get a little bit older with your kids, it might be that there's some childcare, daycare that's going on, but there's a morning routine of getting them out of the house. There's the pickup after school routine, where they do after school. There's the dinner routine, and there is the bedtime routine. You might have some other routines, but my guess is that for the most part, you're doing 3 or 4 of these things every day, aren't you? So how do you lead in this? And the key things on the morning routine circle is that when do they need to leave for school? That's the hard line. That's when you need to leave the house and then start to move backwards. For dinner time, when does dinner start? When do you hope the dinner will start? What's your desire? Not between 4 and 9. No. You probably want dinner at 6, whatever it is. But you need to know that. Okay? Same thing with the bedtime routine. The guy that I'm coaching on some stuff right now, he got 4 boys, and sometimes bedtime's at 8:30, sometimes it's 10:30. I'm like, oh, dude, you got to be killing yourself. They got 4 boys. They're all trying to get to bed. And they still have not gotten to this routine where this is what we do. And once you establish this, then what you do is you start to make all these things choices for the nighttime routine. Hey, do you guys want to put your pajamas on first or brush your teeth first? Do you guys want to read a story first or pray first? Do you guys need to use the bathroom first? You see, when you ask these little questions, what you're doing is you're leading them. You're just leading them little by little. And they have a say in the matter. But you're just saying, hey, you're still moving, you're still leading, but with those choices, you're creating a rhythm, a structure, and how to relate to you because you're the leader. God's made you the leader of the home. So here's some ways to think about how do these choices apply, okay? Hey, I have dropped a whole bunch of stuff on you, this second point, but the big thing I'm trying to say, and it might be that this isn't helpful to you, maybe there's a different resource, but one of the best things we were told by one of our pastors is that for Janet and I to find something that we both agree on in the sense of how we lead and manage our home with our kids and be on the same page about it. Learn that system. Learn that program. Because the more you learn it, the better you're going to grow, the better you're going to get, the more confident you're going to feel because you keep learning how to apply it. Does that make sense? But the big idea is that God wants all of us to grow in Christ. We can get better little by little with his help. We really can. I think we might want to try some questions, because I don't know if I'll have answers. So questions and puzzlement.
Yeah, will you guys help me thank Ben? We have so many gold nuggets from him. Thank you for having so much practical application for us and great content. We actually have a chunk of time for table discussion, so you guys can really dig into the content.
Right. That's first. I keep messing up the schedule.
You're doing
Sorry.
great.
That's right. Then we'll come back.
That's what we're here for.
Yes, thank you. Keep me straight.
So we're going to transition to table discussion. Mentor moms, go ahead and open the time in prayer, and then work through those questions, and then after that, Ben's coming back on stage for the Q&A. So take it away, Mentor Moms.
You're so gracious. Thank you.
Of course.